Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Lynn Nesbitt, and I'm chairing today's panel. Joining me on the panel are Tracy Anderson and Brian Carlin. Our assessor today is Clayton Deitchen, and our administrative personnel is Phoebe Graywood. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the business assessment role in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act and the City of Winnipeg Charter. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussions to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I'll confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 6 on our docket today. Ms. Graywood, please affirm the assessor's and applicant's testimony.
Mr. Deitchen, please state your full name.
Clayton Deitchen.
Do you affirm the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And Mr. Neufeld, please state your full name. Sorry, you're still muted.
Ayrton Neufeld.
Do you affirm the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Deitchen and Mr. Neufeld. Let's start right in with file number 24-5060. This is 3161 Portage Avenue. And Mr. Neufeld, before we begin, I just want to confirm its appeal of the ARV, the rental value of the property.
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, Mr. Deitchen, whenever you're ready, please.
Okay, it's file number 24-5060. The address is 3161 Portage Avenue. Business assessment ID is 25697. The total rental ARV is 153,960. The total area is 5,200 square feet, and an overall ARV of 2961 a square foot. You can see on the first page that it's broken down. The base ARV at 139,932 at a base ARV per square foot of 2691, with the occupancy costs brings it to 153,960 total annual rental value. Page 2 is just the property description and a overhead shot of the subject. Page 3 is just the exterior photo. You can see it's an Access Credit Union. Page 4 is the border revision order. You could see the value for the realty was reduced from 2,838,000 to 2,165,000 on page 5. You could see that the board's conclusions excuse me, are based on the evidence provided by the applicant and the assessment and taxation department, whereas the NOI was used from the assessment and taxation department with a cap rate of 6.25 plus $50,000 additional land value. So the rents and NOI were used by our rents and NOI. Then continue on to page 6 are the bank comparables, the rent comparables. I think there was an issue with the first comparable, so I'm just going to take that one out. Now, but then the other ones we have on Portage, 2 to 5. You can see they range from $29.02 to $38 a square foot, and you can see that our subject is around $27, so falls below the range for our bank rent comparables for this area. Then continue on pages 7 and forward are just these bank rent comparables photos, so you could just kind of, the pictures are kind of small, but you kind of see where they are and what they are. And then pages 14 and 15 is just the applicant's information from the realty appeal. So you can see that they use $24 a square foot for the bank area. And then their comparables on page 15, you can see that they have a bit of a range from $17 to $27, so it falls close to where our model is at. And then pages 16 and forward are just the mailer for the property, but it is fully owner occupied. And that is my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deitchen. Mr. Neufeld, questions for Mr. Deitchen?
Yeah, thank you. My first question, the 5,200 square feet, that includes upper floor, is that correct?
I believe there's an upper floor, yes.
And you're assessing it $26.91, and that is for a blended rate of the main and upper. Is that also correct?
It's for the whole area, the 5,200. Yeah.
Your page 6, do any of your banks have upper area that they're including in that area?
I'm not too sure.
Okay. A lot of banks, it's kind of a leading question. I'll get to that. I'll just respond. I'll just say it in my presentation. But and then my other question, typically in the marketplace, do you agree or disagree that a second floor with no separate entrance would not really gain as much rent as the main floor?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Sorry. Okay. Well, just basically, a second floor, even if it does have its own entrance and it's separated, are they generally renting for the same as a first floor in a retail style non-office tower? I guess is the best.
Potentially, but looking at this bank, like the bank, I believe it's used for storage and break rooms. So I think it's vital for the bank to use and run as a bank. So I'm not too sure.
Yeah, no, I'm not arguing that. I
think as a bank, it is required. So
okay, and then
upstairs or downstairs.
Sorry, I'm not trying to talk over you. I just it's the mic. Do you have the wall heights of the second floor?
I don't, unless it's on. I don't. I just on my page 2 it says wall height 9 feet, so I'm not too sure what that.
Yeah, and there's no total A. Okay, no, fair enough. I don't exactly know. I just, but I'll get to that.
Yeah.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Ms. Anderson, questions for the assessor?
I have no questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Deitchen, just to confirm, the leasable area is a combination of the first and second floor?
From what I could tell, yes.
Okay, and in your realty assessment, did you assign different values to the first and second floor or just an overall rate?
I didn't do the realty, but from what I saw, it was just an overall rate.
Overall rate for the two floors. And I think you indicated that the second floor was kind of necessary to the operations of the first floor.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
would
what I
say
heard
so.
you say?
Yeah, I would say so. Like all banks have storage areas, little office areas, break rooms and such. So I think it's vital for the operation of the bank for
Is,
credit.
is there a basement in this?
I didn't see a basement in this one.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, thank you very much. Mr. Neufeld.
Thank you. Did I mute myself? No, I didn't. I'm just not going to get too far into all of these today. Everyone is under appeal. There's some changes on some. I don't think any of them have their rents changed, but I don't really want to re-argue, but I will just make some points, and I'm happy with how the board feels. I think for this one, especially, we are at 23 and 8, and I think the 8 is a little not arbitrary. We use 13 in realty, so that wouldn't be wrong either. I think that's kind of how you want to value this is kind of hard as it is. If you look at my page 5 and 6, it's a break room and a storage, as the assessor mentioned, and I think the ceilings are that yellow bulkhead I'd be pretty close to my head. It wouldn't be hitting it. I took those pictures years ago, but it's not, if you did even put a separate entrance, which is not feasible, you wouldn't be able to really get anyone in there because it's not really it's tight space. And they have on the bottom of page 6, you can see the open, the ventilation on the roof there above those files, more of that in 7. So, we have, the assessment department has storage rents. And on top of that, they do, you'll note that a main floor is always renting more than a second. We're not showing a whole lot of information to provide that because I did bring banks and all of these are main floors. And the assessor did too. And I'm not trying to say it's wrong or right. It's you're not going to get a broken out rent on a first or second floor in these banks. It's just not something that happens. And I would argue, which is what I was trying to ask, but realized it was better to just argue, is that you're not going to see many banks with second floors at all if they're built as a bank. So that's a very atypical thing. I noticed too, I don't have any idea why my AC value is off. So please ignore that and use the assessor's costs. We don't disagree with the area. I'm assuming that was an error. And if you want me to recalculate it, it's a few $100, but kind of inconsequential. But like I said, this was appealed. I think what I'm noticed for today and all of these that are under appeals, there's a lot of disparity in the rent. We'll get to them, but there's some both on Leela where the difference is $5-6, and the higher one's the older one. And it's kind of, I think really when we're arguing equity on top of it, which a business tax is important to do, there's really not a whole lot of continuity within these. And I get that they're modeled and that's what happens. It's not a perfect science, but I think we're kind of looking at more of a, close. The numbers are that we're putting are a little closer, and I would base them mostly on area. My rents on page 3, these are the ones that we had that we know were free and clear of external costs in their leases. So this is just real estate value. There are higher bank rents, but a lot of the signs you're seeing crazy TIs. They're paying for cubicles. They're paying for computers in some situations, and that's not. We try to avoid those. There's an argument that they could be used, but we're not using them because we know that these ones are free of that. And the one I have at 27 too, that's the highest of those, and I would argue that that's really because it's a St. Vital Center. So becomes a little. It's a bit of a he said she said kind of situation with these bank rents, but we're firm that the assessor has a different code for them. When they go out, there's a lot that have been closing as there's been amalgamating. They don't sell based on these rents that banks get. They sell based on what people can use it for their use because they're generally small enough that a business would want it. $33, $40 rents are almost unheard of in our market. There's some TI ridden banks that achieve those, but I would argue that they're not really market value. But yeah, my value of 112,460 with the change of the AC, it rounds out to about 114. And yeah, that's all I have to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Deitchen, questions?
Quick question. I guess I'm looking, well, like comparing to the realty comps, you use the same comps, but it looks like you adjusted the second floor $5 less and the main floor $1 less. What was the reasoning for that?
I just kind of tweaked them. Wasn't a whole lot of rhyme or reason to that. I think both are suitable. I honestly, that upper floor bothered me because it's 13. You're not renting that, right? That's really it's storage too. So that's why I made the major change on that upper floor. But yeah, if you applied 24 to this for the business tax, I wouldn't have really any disagreement with that. I think that's fair. It was just I kind of looked at these with a fresh eye and made a little bit of changes. There will be about $1 difference in some of these coming on too. I think I might have even picked rents that I liked that compared specifically. So the Corridon BMO, which it's not really a freestanding, but that one's renting at 23. 24 is just as good, or not just as good, but acceptable.
Okay, I guess my other follow-up question then, like, do you have anything to support the $8 upper floor rent? Like, I'm just
I guess I was looking through that, not overly. Sorry, my shoes untied is bothering me. I mean, I don't have variance. You're right. Good point. We can see that it is storage. I will have to, if this goes through appeal, guys, the realty already definitely will have to be bringing better second floor and storage rents for sure. That's a fair point.
I guess just one other follow or quick question. You're talking about like possibly renting out the second floor and such, but would you agree that as it stands as a whole, the highest and best use is a bank?
Yeah, or a similar operation. I think what I'm talking about the second floor, I'm more or less talking how you're looking at what 2651 on both floors. So if that second floor was capable of being rented out, I still don't think it would be as high as the main, but it could be at least in the ballpark. When it's not like this, then yeah. But no, I agree. The highest and best use is as is, or a similar operation.
Yeah. So like if another bank came in, they would probably use the whole thing.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. But
Okay.
I don't think they would value the main floor and the second floor as the same, especially too, part of the main floor has got vaulted kind of open ceilings in the front too. As you'll notice, the second is about half the area of the main. So it's had a back half, kind of almost like an industrial mezzanine in a weird way, because it is a very low ceiling for them. And that's, in industrial, often mezzanines don't get counted because they're ruining the space below. But this is a different for retail. It just shouldn't be the same as the main. I've never, I don't think I've seen that on properties like this, because you're looking at the highest rent of all these properties we have today, or among them. You would think this one would be the lowest of all the ones we're dealing with today because of that second floor space, if you're using a blended rate.
Okay. Yeah. No further questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Deitchen. Mr. Carlin, questions for Mr. Neufeld?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Neufeld, just to confirm, the realty has been appealed to the municipal board?
Correct.
Okay. And all items on today's docket have been appealed to the municipal board?
Yes, maybe one hasn't, but
Okay.
I'm sure at least, I think all of them, maybe just 5 of them.
Okay. You can let us know if we get to a spot where it hasn't been.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Deitchen, any requirement for summation?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld?
No, thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes item number 1. Let's go to item number 2 now. This is file number 24-5077-952 Main Street. And again, Mr. Neufeld, to confirm, this is an appeal of the business value.
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Deitchen, when you're ready, please.
Sure, just give me 1 second here. Okay, this one is file number 24-5077. The address is 952 Main Street. The business assessment ID is 22713. You can see that there are 2 premises for this property. The first one being 5,312 square feet. So this is the bank portion of it, and it actually, I believe this one spans over 3 floors. I would have to double check that, but that one is the bank portion. It's at 1588 a square foot with occupancy costs, brings the ARV to 98,700. And the second portion is actually the office space, and that is at 7646 square feet, and the per square foot rate is 1054, brings the ARV to 101,220 for a total of 199,920. Page 2 is just the description of the building. Page 3 and 4, just the photos of the building. You can see on page 4 the exterior photo. Page 5 is the realty board order. You can see it was reduced from 2,118,000, I believe, to 1,956,000. And then page 6, you can see this was based on the evidence provided by both applicant and assessment and taxation department. The decision was based on NOI presented by the assessment and taxation department with a cap rate of 8.5%. So our rents were agreed with on the realty side of things. Page 7, again, are my comps. So the first ones are the bank comps. So you can see that they have a bit of a range. They're all around the $30, $32 to $35.25, with a mean of $33.09 and a median of $32.38. And then the office rent comparables, you can see there's a bit of a range from $17 to $22.45, with a mean of $18.99 and a median of $19. And again, you can see that these rents compared to our model rents are much lower than our comparables. And again, pages 8 forward are the comparable photos. And then page 20 is just the applicant's realty information. You can see that they, I believe, used $11 for the total size of the building of 18,658, but that's including other portions that aren't on this hearing today. And then just some other office rent comparables, but it's not all office. There is a bank portion to this, so I believe that there should be a split out of that. And then pages 22 forward are just the income and expense millers for the property. Again, I believe it's mostly owner occupied. So yeah, and that is my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deitchen. Mr. Neufeld, questions for Mr. Deitchen?
Yeah, thank you. I'm not muted. You said, so you've separated out bank and office. It is a bank in the main floor. What makes the real estate different from the bank and the main floor from, say, if the identical office was next door without the bank? Is that like, I think, yeah, I mean, that's my question, I guess, is what makes this a bank? Is it just that there's ATMs in it?
It would make it a bank because
In a real estate sense, sorry.
Sorry?
Yeah. Sorry, in a real estate sense. It is a bank. I'm not arguing that. But in a real estate sense, why is it treated differently than, say, an office that would be without the ATMs?
Because banks are set up differently, like there is an office portion. I don't know, like the upper floors. I don't know if the upper floors are. I would have to double check where the office is again, but it's a bank because they are set up as a bank. Like there's lenders and such in there. I can't speak to it too much. I haven't been into this building, so.
Fair enough. No.
Yeah.
I'm sort of making my argument in my questions. So that's fair
Mhm.
too. I just was kind of wondering if there was sort of, when does it become a bank? Is it just what their usage is, or is it there an actual real estate difference? But yeah, no, fair enough. And then I guess I was just looking through your office comps.
Mhm.
Do you think any of these, or would you say that any of these are comparable areas? I know we're talking Main Street, but
Mhm.
you're going a lot further up Main. And what would you say is the most comparable of your office rents to this?
Well, I would say the Main Street ones are still, like, I know they're a bit further down, but they're still on Main Street. Yeah, I'd say I guess the Main Street ones are probably the best.
Okay. No, yeah, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Ms. Anderson, questions for Mr. Deitchen?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin?
No questions, thanks.
I have a question. So, Mr. Deitchen, you talked about the leasable square foot and the realty and the leasable square foot here in the business. They're different.
Mhm.
Can you explain that to us, please?
I would assume that there's a portion that wasn't appealed today. Like I'm not too sure. I can't speak to that one.
I can if you want me to.
Like there's probably other premises, but yeah, if the applicant wants to.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Neufeld.
Yeah, it's just partly, this is the only part that's occupied by this business. So they have this office.
Okay,
It's capable of being rented out. I'm not tired. We didn't appeal those other portions, but when we appealed the realty, we did the whole thing. And
okay,
then this is what's being assessed because this is what
okay.
now Access Credit Union is actually.
So there's 5,700 square feet kind of being used by a different tenant.
Yeah, it might even be vacant. I don't.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay,
But it's because I'll get into it, but it was a weird purchase for them. So they might have just had it not ever used. They bought this old bank franchise. So.
Okay. And so, Mr. Deitchen, your blended rent, if I see, looking forward into Mr. Neufeld's brief, he used a blended rent of $11. I calculated your blended rent at about $12.73.
Yeah.
Would that be correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's all the questions I had. So thank you. Mr. Neufeld.
Thank you. So we basically didn't treat this like a bank at all. And if you look at it on my page 2, this is there's a stretch of Main that you can fairly confidently say is not a desirable location to be renting. The pawn trader is the neighbor. And I think if for anyone familiar with that area, that's kind of very indicative of what goes around there. There isn't really, if they were to decide to get a tenant there, and again, I should have looked into that, but I can't see who would want to go in there. When it was built, it was a little bit better of an area for them in the 1979, but this was built as a concrete building and it's in an awful location. And they do have a bank operating in there, but it's offices, ATMs. It's really an office. Like there's no real major difference between the main floor and the uppers, aside from being a little bit more desirable on the main. You could probably argue that I'm going 12 and 10 kind of thing. That's not mathematic, but it would be, we're using a blended rate of 11. But that's fundamentally it. I mean, this is being assessed as a bank because it's being operated as a bank, but it's not providing any more value than anything else that could possibly go in it just because it's a bank. I think my page 4, this is the one we use for realty heavily, was the 1750 Main. It's a tired kind of medical facility, similar kind of construction to this. It's still, that would be a better area. I think the further you're further off Main at that point. But it's still not quite the new area that is the desirable part of Maine, which I would argue that the assessors rents on Main Street. Sorry, I just want to look at them. I mean, 1467. That's in the ballpark, but we're looking at 1,400 square feet there. Very small unit. But 2536 Main is not really the same market area as 952. It's vastly different. And you get to the edge of town there, it's desirable. And two, I mean, looking at his office rents on page 7, they're all pretty small. There are like little tiny units that are being used. The 11,000 at 17, 950 Jefferson. If we just look on the page 15, that's a large kind of closer to that mall area. I don't see that as really comparable to this subject either. We have a no parking 3-story office in it, arguably one of the worst places to rent down in our city. Yeah, so I mean, and two, when we were thinking about this is what credit union was this? They purchased Access Credit Union has been consolidating with a lot of the credit unions. It was Carpathia at the time, but they basically took all of Carpathia's banks and they are closing as they see fit because there's other ones that they've been acquiring, and they they're basically, when they have a little overlap in their areas, because say there was an Access and a Carpathia that are only a street down from each other, they're closing one of those, and that's what they're doing right now, is they're actually closing these banks. I don't think that there's one overly close to this, but when you look at this 952, you close it off so you can sell it, and maybe use it as a cash flow instead of a facility, but this doesn't really have much market value to it. So they could sell this out and probably wouldn't really benefit them as much as just running it as a low quality bank that they already have. This one's very different from the rest of ours, but I do some of my original arguments about banks do apply, and I think more so on this one because it really is, like I said, just an office that happens to have a bank on the main floor. Office for real estate purposes. My number is total of 177,520, and that would be what I'm requesting at 11. Thank you.
I think she's frozen. Can you guys hear me still?
Yeah, I can, but my screen just froze for a
Yeah.
few minutes. So
I saw that.
yeah, so go ahead. I missed if you had a question.
I guess just a quick question. So do you agree that this is owned, occupied and used by a bank?
Absolutely. Yeah. There is a bank in there. And I think this is one of the most evident ones. We make that argument for all of these, but this is, I mean, look at it, and it's just a poor office.
Okay, okay. I guess
and
then looking at my comps and your comps for banks, and I understand you say it's undesirable, but it's clearly much lower than all those
Correct. Yeah, and again, I wouldn't apply any of my bank rents to this, and that's what I'm kind of getting at. And honestly, I think the SETI somewhat is agreeing to that by only putting 1588 on it, because you don't have any bank rents that support 1588, right? So we're sort of looking at this as your office rent in a way, not to say how you're doing it, but I think there's clearly, even the city treats this like it's not a $30 bank. So there's some recognition of my argument, just not necessarily to the same degree.
I guess just one other question. It looks like you applied $11 to on the realty side to 18,600-ish square feet. And now you're applying $11 to about 13,000. Would economies of scale play any effect on the rent for a smaller size like this?
Yes, but I think the issue with that being is we are always kind of looking for flow through for these. I guess that's an argument. It's just generally not one we get into for business taxes. I think if we look at the total building, we're applying for 11. When this goes to appeal, that will still be our request is 11. And this would be our same target for business taxes. It's an interesting question, I will say, but at the same time, because I think of the way that business taxes generally do that flow through, that we wouldn't do that in this situation. But if it was comparing the realty of two different properties that are those different sizes, then absolutely there would be a difference. And that's, yeah, I think that answers.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carlin, questions for Mr. Neufeld?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, do you think that the lower rents that the city is applying, I mean, you indicated that it's reflective of more office rents, but would they, well, maybe this is a question for the city actually, would that also reflect location?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it would have to.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, you're not going to really see a rented bank in this area too. This is a weird, it's an oddball property to be looking at in our lens and assessment. But yeah, absolutely location.
And ditto on the realty side with a higher cap rate.
Yeah, absolutely. And you put this exact building in the South End, it's probably worth double. But it's also not a great looking building. It's got a lot of problems.
Yeah. And as you noted, both of your rents are significantly lower than they would be if you compared it to a normal bank.
Absolutely. Yeah.
In a different location. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I have no additional questions. Mr. Deitchen, requirement for summation?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld?
No, just we're treating it more as an office in a bad location. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, that concludes item number 2. Item number 3. This is file number 24-5058, 2526 Main Street. Mr. Neufeld, before we get started, I note that there is no brief by you on this property. Oh, you're muted.
No, there wasn't. I think we'll just request, sorry. I can't remember. I must have missed this one, to be honest. So I don't have an argument.
Okay. All right. So Mr. Deitchen, if you could just go through the property then, and then Mr. Neufeld, when he's done, you can indicate what you wish to do. Okay.
You want me to go through the whole?
If you could do a summary of it. We don't know yet exactly what's happening with it, so.
Okay. This one's file number 24-5058. The address is 2526 Main Street. Business assessment ID is 41348. You can see the premise is 5,500 square feet at a base ARV of 153,285. At a base ARV per square foot of 2787 with occupancy costs, the ARV comes out to 168,120. You can see on page 2 is just the property description along with the photo. Page 3, some exterior photos. You can see on page 4 is the board order. You can see the value was confirmed at $3,142,000. You can see on page 5 that it says the assessment was confirmed. Page 7 is the same comparables again. You can see around $30 a square foot for the banks. Then page 8 and 4 are just the photos of the comps. And pages 19, 20, 21 are the mailers. And then on page 22 and forward is just the applicant's realty information. You can see they indicated $25 a square foot. And then the last page is the comparables they use. And that's my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deitchen. Mr. Neufeld.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Carlin.
No questions, thanks.
Okay, I have no questions. So Mr. Neufeld.
Yeah, so I don't have a presentation. I just would ask that my comments and other ones were kind of applied forward. I think we're looking at less of a tighter range for these regular banks, and then basically making changes based on the area. I think this one would be comparable to the main floor of 3161, which I would have request that number, but I don't have a number for you, so I'll just leave it at that.
So you are not presenting new ARV, total ARV for us to consider, Mr. Neufeld?
You know what, I might as well. It'll take me 2 seconds. Bearing in mind that there's no evidence. But I guess I'd be looking for the $23 that I'm looking for on 3161. So base rent of 126,500, and I don't have the brief in front of me, but add the assessor's costs to that would be my request.
Okay.
If you could, I can look it up if you want me to find the
The
actual.
assessor cost was $14,850.
Okay. So my request would be 141,350.
Okay. Mr. Deitchen, questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Carlin?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Anderson?
Also no questions, thank you.
Thank you. And I have no questions. Mr. Deitchen, summation?
No, thank you.
Mr. Neufeld?
Just apologies for no brief. That was oversight. But that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. All right, that will conclude item number 3. Let me just get organized here. Does anybody need a break, or are we good to continue for the last 3?
I'm good.
Carry on. Okay. Okay, item number 4 is file number 24-5059. This is 310 Leela Avenue. And Mr. Neufeld, I'd like to confirm this is an appeal of the assessed value, the business value.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Deitchen, whenever you're ready, please.
This is file number 24-5059. The address is 310 Leela Avenue. Business assessment ID is at 26240. See the premise breakdown on page 1 here. So the area is 5,038 square feet at a base ARV of 119,149 at a base ARV per square foot of 2365. With the occupancy cost, that brings about the ARV to 132,780. Page 2 again is just the property description. Page 3 is an overhead view of the subject. Page 4 is just the exterior photo of the subject property. Again, page 5 is the border revision order. You can see that the assessed value was confirmed at $2,105,000 on page 6. Kind of hard to read, but you could see that the realty assessment was confirmed at the Board of Revision. Continuing on to page 7 is the bank rent comparables. Again, same comparables as we've seen before, ranging about $32 to $35.25 with a mean of $33.09 and a median of $32.38. And again, pages 8 to 18 are the comparable property photos. Pages 18, 19, 20, 21 are just the subject property income and expense mailers. And then pages 22 and 23 again are just the applicant's realty information. You can see that they were at $22 a square foot for the area we are looking at, which is pretty close to where our model numbers at. And that is my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deitchen. Mr. Neufeld, questions for Mr. Deitchen?
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just, if you object to this, I'd understand. I'll just quickly mention the next one we're dealing with at 803 is 2812 base rent, and we've been dealing with all these today, and they're closer to that 28, I'd say. What would be the reason that this one's down at 2365? It's like 2000 construction.
Isn't that comparing assessments though, or?
Yeah, well, we are talking about business taxes, so we're talking about equity. So I don't think that's really, I think that's allowed in that based on the rules of the Winnipeg Charter. But I'm asking more or less why the model came up with 2365, and I think that's a fair question.
Yeah, we can ask that question, but maybe not in relation to the next property, which we haven't even looked at.
Yeah, well, then I mean, I'll make the point in the next property.
Okay, thank you.
2365 is would you disagree that that's a lower end of the banks that you dealt with?
The lower end of the banks that I've dealt with?
Rents that are applied for banks.
I can't speak to all the bank rents. Like there's a lot of things that go into the rents, like age, location, size. There's tons of different factors. I can't really speak to why this one is at a certain rate compared to another.
Okay. This has parking. Would you? I mean, it's a generally good area. I think we would say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, and then of course your page, page number 20. That's the income expense mailer. Would you put any weight into the $16.50 rent that's being provided there for this property, the same property? It's the smaller area, mind you. But do you think that rental office in the same building would have any bearing on this one?
I wouldn't, because it's an office and not a bank.
Okay. Wait, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Ms. Anderson, questions for the assessor?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Deitchen, again, there's a difference between the realty square footage and the business square footage. Again, would that be because a different tenant?
Yeah, there's a separate tenant in there.
Okay, so we have a bank in the majority of the building and then a separate tenant in the other, about not quite 1,100 square feet.
That's correct. You can see on page 4, I believe it's that door on the right side. It's the entrance.
Okay,
I believe so.
I see a different sign there.
Yeah.
Can't really make out what it
No.
is, but I do see the different access there and the different sign.
Yeah.
Okay. Should have looked at that first. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right.
Okay. Okay, I don't have any additional questions. So Mr. Neufeld.
Thank you. What am my very last page, 14. Section 1716 In determining an annual rental value for purposes of a business assessment, an assessor shall determine the annual rental value by such method or in such a manner that the annual rental value determined by the assessor is fair and just in relation to the annual rental value assigned to other assessable properties. It comes up a lot less these days, but business equity is what because we're talking about a tax on these people's businesses. It is based on real estate, but it isn't based on essentially what they're selling the building for. It's based on it's going to a business. So we do actually put equity in we put weight into that argument of equity, and that's in the act, or sorry, the charter. And that's really because you don't want one bank being taxed way higher than another because we are dealing with a business. We used a rent of $22, minor difference. With the exception of Main Street and 810 Lila, or the next Lila, which I'll get into because for that, I think if you applied 2365 on the main floors of all of Henderson, Portage, and why am I blanking Maine, that would be a fair and equitable assessment. And confirming this one, I'm still requesting $22. Not trying to anticipate exactly how you would see this, but I think that would satisfy section 1716 of the Winnipeg Charter. But I am still requesting 22. It's just some food for thought. Where are we at? I lost my. But this is very similar to the others, so a lot of my arguments stand. No main floor. There is a rented tenant, and like the assessor mentioned, that's not being assessed here in business tax. But my final request would be 124,440. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Deitchen, questions?
I guess you already agreed to it, or you already said that like we're pretty close on rent overall. Is that correct?
Yeah, slight disagreement, but I wouldn't, I don't think your rent is unreasonable for this bank.
And not to get too deep into it and comparing properties and stuff, but would you agree that other properties, whether they could be similar, but they could be different age, they could be renovated, they could have different sizes, and that could affect the rent?
Absolutely. But we are dealing with a 2000s property. It was built in 2000. It's a fine area. I think obviously construction value, quality, and age definitely come into a factor. I just I'm not seeing how this sound adds up to being 23 when the rest are 28, 27.
So would you agree then this property, it was built in 2000, but it hasn't been renovated since?
As far as I know, that doesn't sound correct. Yeah.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deitchen. Mr. Carlin?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just catching up with my notes. Okay, I have no questions. Mr. Deitchen, summation?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Deitchen? Okay, that will conclude item number 4. Excuse me. Item number 5 is file number 24-5074. This is 803 Leela. Before we carry on, Mr. Neufeld, this is an appeal of this business assessment value.
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. Deitchen.
This is file number 24-5074, and the address is 803 Leela Avenue. The business assessment ID is 40120. And I can see the premise breakdown. So there's just one premise at an area of 4,113 square feet at a base ARV of 115,658. And the base ARV per square foot is at $28.12. With the occupancy costs applied, the ARV value is 126,780. Again, page 2, you can see the property description. You can see on this one, it was built in 89, but there was an effective year effective age applied to it because there was renovations done, I believe, around 2012. So on page 3 and 4, just some photos of the property overview and the exterior photo. Page 5 again is the board revision order. You can see that the value was confirmed at $2,260,000. You see on page 6 that the board's conclusion was the assessment was to be confirmed. And then page 8 again is the same comparables as we've seen, ranging from 32 to 35.25 with a mean at 33.09 and a median at 32.38. Again, pages 8 to 19 are the comparable property photos. Pages 19, 20, 21, 22 are the income and expense mailers. And then page is 23 just shows the applicant's information again from the realty side. And they were applying $22 a square foot, it looks like. And then the last page is just the comparables that they used for the property. And as my notes, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld.
Yeah. If I could bring you to your page 23, because that's my submission for the realty.
Mhm.
You can see the overhead there. Would you agree there's 0 parking stalls on this roll?
It looks like it could be.
Yeah. Okay. So we assess this as a bank. If a property is, oh, sorry, one question before that. Would you disagree if I said that this was built as a restaurant?
I would not know the difference, or I would not know the answer to that, sorry.
Yeah, fair enough. If we're assessing something as a bank, but it's assuming it is built as a restaurant, would that not have some sort of impact on a value when you literally have two different? You have your own code for a bank.
Mhm.
If it's built as a restaurant, and of course we know there's renovations, that's fair enough. But if it's built as a restaurant, wouldn't that have difficulties being used as a bank, and shouldn't that come into the assessment?
Like I said, I'm not too sure if it was a restaurant or not. I'm assuming that's what the renovations were, then they're relatively substantial. And anything's possible. You could convert it to a bank and you can use it as a bank, as we see here.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Ms. Anderson, questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Carlin?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Just going back again to the square footage. I know when we get to Mr. Neufeld's presentation, there will be a difference between the square footage that you're using. So this 4,113, that's just the bank portion?
That's correct.
Okay.
I'd have to double check what the other areas, but yeah, I'm not too sure.
Okay. I know I have so many documents open. Yeah, the leasable is 6336
Yeah,
on
looks
the
like there's-
realty, and you used 4113 for the business. Okay. Okay, we'll maybe get an explanation for that when we
It looks
talk
like there's an
to,
insurance company in part of the building.
yes.
Yeah.
But you've used 4,113, correct?
Yeah, that's just for the Access Credit Union.
That's just the access,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. Thank you. And you indicated that this base rent was confirmed by the board,
That's correct.
the Board of Revision. Okay, thank you. Mr. Neufeld.
Thank you. I'm just trying to figure out that size. Yeah, I don't have an answer on the size. We used a different area.
Yeah.
We didn't measure this. I'm not sure if the city would have Yeah, that's a good question. I will. I mean, I guess I'll defer to their area. Whether or not that's wrong, I'm not sure. There is an assurance agency in there. They have. There's no common ownership, but they do have a lot within each other. So it could also just be a matter of common area. And then we put it in from our realty. So I'm not too sure what the answer to that is.
Okay.
Focusing on the rent. This is the property itself has 0 parking, the entire thing. It was built as a Red Lobster. It might have been an Olive Garden, but I think it was a Red Lobster. And then they divided out just that portion with 0 parking. The customers, of course, use the mall's parking, but they don't have a right to it if they do sell it. So that's what we are when we're looking at the realty. That's a huge factor. You know, I would think this is something that the city and probably even myself have gone through, and we did do this 4113. So I will still request the $21 based on the construction not being a bank and the lack of parking. I'll give you a number in a sec. But I think too, when we're looking, you know, the assessment department has these codes for banks. They treat them as different properties. There are a lot of things that go into bank rents that we don't see as realty value, so that what is inflating them. You'll even notice they have $33, $34 rents that they're bringing in, but they're only using 28 as their actual rent. I don't really think banks should be treated any differently than realty, or in a different use code than probably office. They have their own use code, but if you're going to do the use code, I think the construction of what the building is built as is very, very, very important. Because if it's built as a bank in 2000, such as 310 Leela, that would be more desirable than converting a restaurant to a bank. And the 2012, I do believe the construction was actually when they went from the former bank, which I forget, to Sonova, which was then bought by Access. The conversion of the restaurant was done before 2012. I want to say in the early 2000s, maybe late 90s. I don't have that date, but they did renovate they dressed up the bank, and that's where they're looking at a 2005 effective age, and you could argue that, but is it a 2005 effective age of an office or 2005 effective age of a bank? I would still think something built as a bank in 2000 would be more desirable than something built as an all Red Lobster in 1989, no matter how much work you did inside. So I don't have a great answer for you on the area, but we will go with the assessors because that's what we have. But I wouldn't be upset if my evidence for the area was not allowed, or my argument for it, because I don't have a great answer, but I will apply their area to my $21 rent. Or request a 97,478, and I rounded would be 480.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Deitchen, questions?
Yeah, I guess, again, looking at the realty, you applied 22 and now you're applying 21. You're even talking, I don't want to go back to the previous property, but you applied 22 and you're talking about equity and such. How come you applied 21 to this property ultimately?
That was fundamentally, I looked at it and said, there's no parking. This one has to be lower than the rest. 0 parking stalls this way. And again, the construction. You're right with the equity, but I think this, if you're treating this strictly as a bank, not an office, this has a lot of disadvantages that the others don't.
I guess going to the whole, like, would you agree that a renovated property is more desirable?
Yeah, absolutely. But again, that's kind of goes back into our argument that we're always making, that these aren't really different properties because they're banks. You can make, if like a lot of these ones that Access has sold, like I think 5 in the last year or so, they're going to office. And once they're assessed as office, they're assessed in these office rents, and nothing's really changed. They took off some of the bank decals and obviously got rid of some of the furniture and all that, but it's the same building. So that's kind of goes to my argument where I don't think banks should really be treated differently.
Okay, I guess then my question will be, well, looking at my bank rents, your bank rents, and then we saw office rents earlier, would you not agree that they're much higher, like $20 to $30 range?
Yeah, I mean, banks
They're clearly renting for more.
are in desirable market areas, as in like power centers. So there is definitely an advantage to those properties because of their being in malls and being in desirable areas. All of my offices that I'm bringing forward are more like, well, not as bad as 952, but you're more akin to that. Where these are destination shopping, a lot of these, and this or neighborhood kind of shopping with parking and all that. So because they're banks is not why they're worth more, but because they're in better developments and areas compared to these offices.
So, okay. Well, I don't want to get too off track here. Okay. I guess looking at your occupancy costs, I don't know. I think could be wrong, but it looks like you applied a different occupancy cost than what we have.
Okay.
Like they might be from last cycle's occupancy cost.
Oh,
Maybe.
are they the old numbers? That could be. The number I provided with the change was directly from your brief. I applied 11,105. But yeah, I'm looking at 11,284, so that doesn't even make sense.
Okay.
Oh no, right, because it's the higher area. But the number 97480 is agreeing with your occupancy cost at 11,105.
Okay. And I guess this probably doesn't have too much bearing, but just looking at your bank rents and compared to the realty, it looks like you might have pulled like the old lease dates. Like leases.
Yeah, no, good call.
That's
That's an old brief on my business tax. Yeah. Okay. This is we're training our admin to do. I would ask that you rely on my rents and my other briefs. That's good. That's a good call. This is a messy brief. I'm gonna. We started this new thing where we have our admin start them off and then I finish them out, and I guess I missed a few things here. Fair enough.
Yeah, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deitchen. Mr. Carlin, questions?
No questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question, Mr. Neufeld. You indicated that there's no parking.
Yep.
For this. This Access Credit Union, though, the customers have access to the parking in the shopping mall?
Yeah, I mean, there's no legal, right? So they do, when you're looking at selling this building, there's no parking, but the customers, yeah, I mean, no one's kicking them out for using that parking. And that obviously when the mall did that, they knew that was going to happen. The mall's still operating with that parking there. So it's a weird kind of thing because you don't really see that. Generally, if you're that bank wanting to section this off, you go, well, I want to make sure I'm guaranteed parking. And they would have taken some of that to the east of it. I'm guessing they just looked at this and they thought, we've got a good arrangement here. You're not going to kick us out of the parking, but the mall could. There's nothing legally keeping the mall from not letting them use that parking.
So are you suggesting there is no lease for parking, a long-term lease?
There is no lease for parking. They have, it's an understanding that it's fine. No one's really worried about it because it is, again, the mall that sectioned that off to them back in, I want to say 2000. But there's no, if they were bought out by Donald Trump tomorrow, he could kick them right off. So
funny, not funny.
Yeah, I know. I tried, as I said it, I'm like, don't go there, but
I do have a question, actually.
Okay.
So with that situation with the parking, since it's fundamentally not impacting the business, it's more of a realty or a property value issue than a business issue.
Yeah, that's fair to say. I think, and you're right, because then you could apply the $22 rent. I would still say that the dollar difference would be probably fair just based on the construction. Sorry, I keep losing my shoelaces. But yeah, I think that's a fair, I mean, it's a fair thought, but at the same time, this business has no legal access to parking either. So you're right, they're not hindered by it because their customers are still using it. But that's like, you know, if you're on Corridon and you have 3 parking stalls behind your building, those are more valuable than the 3 street parkings for you, right? Because those businesses do rely heavily on that street parking. So it's kind of almost a philosophical question in a way, but it doesn't have a perfect answer. But I mean, fundamentally, this business does not own parking stalls.
Okay, no, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. I have no additional questions unless somebody wants to follow up on this parking issue. Anybody want to follow up on that? No? Okay. Mr. Deitchen, summation?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. That will conclude item number 5. Excuse me. Moving on to our last item today, item number 6, file number 24-5086. This is 1200 Henderson Highway. And Mr. Neufeld, I'm confirming this is an appeal of the business value.
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. Deitchen, then whenever you're ready, please.
Okay, this one is file number 24-5086. Address is 1200 Henderson Highway. Business assessment ID is 1715. Now you can see this is actually broken down into 2 separate premises. The first one being the main floor bank area at 4,020 square feet at a base ARV of 100,822 and a base ARV of 2508 a square foot brings the ARV for that portion to 111,660. The second one being the basement area at 3,720 square feet brings the ARV to 16,145. And the base ARV for that is $4.34, brings the ARV for that portion to 26,160. And then the total ARV being at 137,820. Page 2 again is the summary of the property with an overhead view. Page 3 is just the exterior of the subject property. Page 4 again is the border revision order. You can see that the value was reduced from 1,549,000 to 1,374,374. Page 5 shows the board's conclusions that the decision was based on the evidence provided by both applicant and the Assessment and Taxation Department. The decision is based on the NOI presented by the Assessment and Taxation Department, which are calculated of 8%. So again, confirming our rents for this property. Page 7 again is the same bank rent comparables, ranging from 32 to 35.25, with a mean of 3309 and a median of 3238. I guess I should have mentioned again, like the blended rate for this property is at 1511 a square foot. If you combine the main and basement floors. On to page 8. To page 18 is the comp photos. Pages 18, 19, and 20 are the income and expense mailers. And then on page 21, you can see the applicant's realty information, and they applied $22 and $5 to the basement for a blended of $13.83. And again, page 22 is just the comps that they use for that. And that is my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deitchen. Mr. Neufeld, questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. And I also have no questions. Mr. Neufeld, your evidence, please.
Thank you. I'm going to make this one a little confusing, and I apologize. We recently had a decision for 1967 Henderson, and I thought about it this morning. I thought it was too late to submit, but I would have liked to bring it today. Essentially, it was an municipal board decision. An office building that was newly built on a first and second story and a basement. And the decision was that the basement was accessory space and not accessible. I'm not going to change my value, but I am going to make the point that what we will be doing going forward based on that decision is not including this basement space. And essentially, because it is still there, we would be looking at the main floor going up. So in this argument, my rent is still my per annum is still 95,280, just on the application of 4,020 square feet. And so that it's, when you break it out as a main and basement, it isn't really an appraisal practice. It's not really done. The assessment department's been doing it, and we've been doing it and not doing it. We haven't been consistent in our argument with that, and it's mostly because we're looking at resolving and figuring things out, whereas the assessment department's having the basement on a lot of these. But I think that's going to change going forward. I'm not going to do this, but based on my argument, the total cost to occupy would decrease. The basement would be removed. I'm still requesting 116, 180. I think that's still fine as a number, but had I done this the way I would want to, it would be 10,044 less based on, the area of 4020. And again, I thought about this morning, and I should have brought forward that decision. It was a municipal board decision that I think will bear a lot of weight going forward. So it would have been good to bring, but it was probably too late this morning. So
Okay.
But yeah, same requested number. But I think my point of why I brought that up is we wouldn't really change that rent. We're just applying it all to main floor area, and that then becomes a $23.70 as a main floor rent.
Okay. But for the purpose of this hearing, you're sticking by the numbers that you've presented.
Correct.
In your brief.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Deitchen. Questions? No questions? Thank you.
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Carlin?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. I have no questions either, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Deitchen, would you care for summation?
I guess just a quick summation kind of to wrap up everything. I think we could see kind of where the board has decided on these. Looking at the bank comps from even the applicant to mine, ranging from 20-ish to $35 a square foot for these banks. And the fact that the highest and best use for these properties are banks, I think that our assessment is fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, would you like summation?
Yes, quickly, just again for everything. I think we're looking at some ranges in net value. Of course, there's going to be range in quality and area, but I think that doesn't answer a lot of the disparity between them. Like I said, that 2365 on 310 Mila 310 wasn't out of line. That was fair. Rough. Like again, I requested 22, but the 2365 is applied on the main floor for all of these. That's not outrageous. Except of course 952 Main, which is completely a different property. But we did appeal all these, so whatever the decision is made is understandable, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neufeld. Okay, we've now heard all items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you very much, Mr. Deitchen and Mr. Neufeld, and have a great rest of your day.
Have a good day, everyone.